One.
This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will, and this is Gandalf.
And he's
joining
here
us.
Mm-hmm. And we are doing a interesting topic that will be short, but it'll be fun. So I do want to kind of start with what is our background on Lord of the Rings, where we're at, and whether we think the franchise can make a comeback in both, with the new TV show coming out, and then also with new games like Gollum and some missteps along the way. So how much Lord of the Rings background do you have?
I'm not going to say I'm like a super expert by any means, but I've read all the books. I read the Silmarillion. I read the Hobbit multiple times. I've read the appendices. I've read, blogs and also books about the world. Well, obviously I've seen the Peter Jackson films. I've seen the Hobbit films. I've played as many Lord of the Rings games as I can get my hands on. So I definitely am a huge fan of basically anything Lord of the Rings.
As far as my experience goes, my Lord of the Rings experience was kind of odd. I read the Hobbit first, and then I read the Silmarillion.
Oh, that's awful. Okay.
And then I read the Fellowship and the Two Towers, which I never finished the Two Towers. And then I never got to Return of the King because I didn't finish the Two Towers. So that's That's my book reading. I read the Silmarillion, man, But anyways, so that was my experience. I'm probably going to go back and finish that series at some point because I think it deserves being finished. Yes. On top of that, I have seen the movies, all of them, obviously, the extended editions included. I have quite a lot of opinions about those movies. I think they're really well done, especially the first three, the Lord of the Rings movies, not the Hobbit. The Hobbit's good too. It's just less
fine.
Good. It's less good.
Yeah.
Good, but less good.
Yes.
If that makes sense. What was I going to say? Oh, there we go. As far as games and stuff, my Lord of the Rings, wow, my ear is not right with my glasses. Hold on a second.
Just pop it off.
It was bothering me. Anyways, as far as the games go, my Lord of the Rings games I've played, I've got Battle for Middle Earth 1 and 2. I've played both of those. Those are amazing.
I don't think I've ever actually played the first one.
A friend of mine had it, so I traded him Age of Empires 2 for a little while, and he had let me play Battle for Middle Earth 1. So that was how I did that. It was Eric, one of our previous guests, when we were trading games when we were kids. And then I also had what is that game called? The Third Age, but it wasn't the one that everybody else played. It was the Game Boy Advance version, which is Fire Emblem. It's basically Fire Emblem, which I loved it. Actually, it was it was a lot of fun. You got all the heroes and stuff. I've played the Return of the King, the PC version.
Oh yeah, I've played the Two Towers and Return of the King on the Xbox. Those are really good games, actually.
They are actually. The Return of the King is fantastic. I just got it booted up and working again because you have to change up some drivers on the PC to make it work, but it does work. And then as far as new games, I have both of the Shadow games, the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War from Will got me those years back. Those are fun. I actually should get back into that soon. It's been a while. I played it for quite a bit religiously for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I kind of walked away from it for a little bit because I was back into RPGs more so than that kind of game. But I think I should go back to that because I was really enjoying it. I think that's it for my Lord of the Rings experience. I love the music too. The music of the Lord of the Rings, especially I know that's not J.R. Tolkien, but what they did with the Peter Jackson movies was fantastic, and it sticks in my head quite a bit.
Yep. Yeah, it really puts you in the mood and gives you the atmosphere of what they're trying to go for. And I honestly think the music actually does a really good job of aligning with the actual theme of the books better than the actual movies do. So the Shire is very peaceful. And then there's scary moments, but there's still a hopeful thread throughout all the music. And I really like that.
I love the intro music. Like you're saying, the Shire music is probably one of the most well-aligned themes to the location. And then they filmed in New Zealand, all of it.
Yeah.
It was an amazing location to film at. It looks beautiful. As far as the games, though, where do you think was the peak of the games, and what's the controversy surrounding the Shadow games?
All right, so the peak, it depends on what kind of. So Lord of the Rings it's a huge expansive genre, it expands across genres. Is what I'm trying to say. So that you have the RPGs, you have the action adventure games, you have the RTSs, you have MOBAs, and. There might even be a mobile game, actually, or maybe a couple. But as far as a peak, at least in my opinion, I really like Shadow of Mordor. I can see why people didn't like it because it completely f's the lore. And then I also really like Battle for Middle Earth 2. Those are my two favorite. But as far as other media, we can talk about board games. The War of the Ring is by far the best one.
Oh, I always forget about that one. So let's look that up real quick because I completely forgot that one exists. What is the deal with that game? Like, what's the whole premise of it?
Basically, you're basically trying to get the Ring of Mordor, and then you have like people who are playing the Ring Wraiths attacking you. It's really cool. It's very book accurate. So there's a lot of cool book elements to that game.
Is this a video game or a board game?
It's a board game. So it's the War of the Ring, but there's also another one that's also pretty similar. I'm trying to think what it's called. I think it might just be called the Lord of the Rings, actually. The board game.
Lord of the Rings, the board game. I have Lord of the Rings Monopoly.
Yeah, there's obviously like Lord of the Rings, Risk, and there's like Battle for Middle Earth now is another one.
Is there a Battle for Middle Earth board game?
Yeah, I think there is. It's something similar to that title, War of the Ring. That's so good.
You like that game quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as far as you're saying that as far as board games, this game is fantastic.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
And then as far as so like again going back, action RPG would be Shadow of Mordor. I honestly, as far as like an action game, I really liked Return of the King, even though it's pretty janky nowadays. And then, like I said before, Battle for Middle Earth 2.
I wonder if there's any like retro Lord of the Rings games because like it got more popular when the media started circulating around it with the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious though, like how many Middle Earth games there were pre big movies. 1982 we had a Hobbit adventure.
I don't think ever. That one's like a.
It's a text based.
Yeah, text one. There is another Hobbit game and it's terrible. Don't play
it. There's Lord of the Rings Game 1. It's the Fellowship of the Ring software adventures. So these are all probably like your text adventures. Mm-hmm. There's a War in Middle Earth, 1988. That was on a bunch of English consoles. These are like the ZX Spectrum is a very English, Commodore 64, very English, Amstrad. These are all very English. I'd be curious what they look like. Crack of Doom. Oh. That sounds funny.
Yes, it does.
You got the Lord of the Rings Volume 1 by Interplay on the 19. It's on the SNES. Wonder if it's any good. Might have to check that out. You got the Riders of Rohan, IBM PC. And then this is probably the last one, 2D style. Yeah, 3D era. You've got 1992 J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings Volume 2, the Two Towers.
The Fellowship of the Ring is terrible. It's not made by the same company that made the other two.
Oh, it isn't? Okay.
No.
Oh, this one, Black Label, that one?
Yeah.
The 2002 game. I thought you were talking about this one. I was like, I don't even know how you would have played this.
No, not that one. So if you play the Two Towers and just going to the Two Towers.
This is what I was
it spans the first movie as well.
This is what I thought you were talking about.
Oh, no.
Maybe
it's a game based off of that board game.
I don't think so. I think it. Let me just pull up YouTube. We'll pull up the YouTube. Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it off screen and just make sure we're logged into the CHRILLCAST account and not one of my random accounts. Because everybody who's a YouTuber knows you have a personal account and you have your YouTube account. Okay, I am actually into the CHRILLCAST one. We're good. I don't want anybody finding my personal ones. All right. Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring, 2003, I think.
Yep, I think you're right.
Yeah, it looks like Age of Empires. That's what it looks like to me.
What is this on? Maybe I need to pick this up.
PC. Yeah, it looks like Age of Empires. Yeah, it's basically Age of Empires.
This is cool. Yeah.
This is like Battle for Middle Earth 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. You got Lord of the Rings Online. You said this Hobbit one's bad, right?
Yeah,
It looks like they dressed out, Bilbo like as if he were the guy from the cartoon instead of the guy from the actual movies.
Look up some gameplay for this game. It's bad.
Was it 2003 as well?
Maybe, I don't know.
Oh God. Is this the game?
No, skip it. This is a mini game. There you go.
Yeah, it looks like they just took the cartoon and 3Dified it.
Oh.
You've seen the Hobbit cartoon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You mean like that old school one?
Yeah, that's the one I saw growing up. Actually, I watched that one several times when I was a kid.
Yeah, I watched that, and also there's one for the rest of them too, the Fellowship and Two Towers.
By the same company.
Yeah.
Really? Is it any good?
I really enjoyed it. They're so long though. Oh my gosh.
So I was not aware that Lord of the Rings Online had such a long.
It's still going, I think.
Yeah, I did not realize that this was still going. Apparently, it started out with Turban Inc., then Midway, then Codemasters, which was apparently a Europe only thing, and then Warner Bros. Took over, obviously, at some point. That's interesting that they. This is, I think, the contract holder publisher, and then this is the developer. Someone from Turbine, whatever you want to call it, the standing.
I was going to say Turbine.
I would say Turbine, just because that. Never mind. Long story. Lord of the Rings adventure card game, and then you got.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings Gollum. How is Shadow of War not on here? Is it because it's not considered a Lord of the Rings game? Now I'm confused. Cancel games reports. Yeah, it's not even listed here. Huh. That's weird. Because this is like Middle Earth games, not just. I think this isn't. I'm surprised they don't count that one.
I don't understand that at all.
Now I gotta look this
up.
I
mean, technically, it's not based off of the books. Is that why? Is it an original story?
I mean, it literally says Middle Earth.
Yeah, I don't understand.
So what is the controversy surrounding these games?
Oh, so the first one's fine. There's no controversy. Everyone loved it. But the second one, Shadow of War, that you see here, it's a single player game that they decided to cram in microtransactions, like really egregious microtransactions. Actually, the entire ending of the game requires you to basically, it's like a battle simulator. So you have to grind through, and if you just go ahead and buy the battle pack, so you can get through it faster to actually beat the game. And we're talking like hours and hours of stuff that you have to do.
So, yeah. So after playing Shadow of Mordor, I can't imagine a game playing that way because I've played a lot of Mordor. I haven't played War yet.
Yeah, well, they ripped it out, so you don't have to do it now. But the fact that they thought that they could get away with that is just amazing to me. It was such a bad idea. And the thing is, it crushed any momentum this game had. So I don't think this game sold very well. I actually picked up for $10 like 3 months after it launched.
I'm curious how many games right now are produced by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment at this point in time, because I don't feel like they have a lot of franchises that they work on.
Well, they have anything DC.
Yeah, they do all the DC
Harry Potter.
Stuff. And also the new Hogwarts game that's coming out, no microtransactions.
I'm very excited for that game. Hogwarts Legacy, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's right here. They just announced there will be no microtransactions for this game. It'll be an entirely single-player adventure.
I'm excited because Avalanche is pretty good.
Yeah. Gotham Knights. Okay, so they do like the Arkham Knight and all that. Oh, they did. They published Back for Blood. I did not realize that. So yeah, the last like true Middle Earth game they did was Shadow of War.
Yep.
So
yeah, someone else is making the Gollum game.
I thought Gollum was still theirs. It's not, though, is it? It's probably got to be outside of when that contract expires.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's the question, is like when a franchise dies due to microtransactions and just bad press, how do you bring that franchise back?
A complete revamp and several years, at least 5, where people can forget about it. I mean, like Lord of the Rings had already done that. So the last couple games before this series had all done very poorly. So Shadow of Mordor came out of nowhere and they far exceeded expectations.
And then they just crashed and burned after that.
Yep, they burned hard.
Wow, there's a long period of time of games in between there. Yeah, you still got Middle Earth in 2015. I guess they do publish a lot of games. I guess they just keep pumping out a lot of the same franchise games. Yeah,
well, there's like rumors that they're trying to sell off this whole division.
Okay.
Yeah, like Microsoft was in talks, supposedly at least,
to potentially buy Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I think that would be a good move for the franchise overall, just because Microsoft tends to at least do well in the beginning with their developers that they buy. I've seen some pretty cool stuff. I mean, Rare being the exception. They had some pretty bad.
They're coming back though.
They are coming back, but Rare had a long revamp to get there at this point. Like, it's been a long time we've been waiting for good change in Rare, and then you get Sea of Thieves now, which is finally becoming a real game. And it was before that had a hard time, but I think Microsoft would be a good place for Lord of the Rings to wind up.
That would be cool. I would not want it to be console exclusive though.
I don't care. I really don't care at this point. If it's a console exclusive that's good for that console, it's fine.
I don't know. Like, the thing is, I would be a hypocrite because I get super pissy about Spider-Man, and I feel that Lord of the Rings speaks to the same part of the inner nerd that I have, so I would be upset.
I don't think exclusives only upset me for a time, right? If it's important enough for me to play, then I'll just buy the console at some point and play it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And exclusives are why consoles exist, and that's like a whole different conversation to have. I think from the standpoint of console exclusivity, it's important because it keeps the devs on the different teams competitive. Mm-hmm. So like PlayStation and Microsoft, if you have all the same games across both platforms, where's the competition to make better games?
That's fair.
Competition amongst developers and publishers is always, in my opinion, a good thing.
I think that I totally agree with you. The only reason why I'm hesitant about this series is just because it's already it exists outside of the console. It was not created by that company. So I don't like it when they take like a well-known property like this and they restrict it to one console. It sucks.
So how about every Star Wars game that basically was console exclusive up until recently? Like, it seemed like every single one of the previous Star Wars games, like there'd be one on Xbox, there'd be a different one on PlayStation, a different one on Nintendo.
Yeah, no, it sucks.
I guess a media franchise that's not contained in video games, I think you should have like console exclusives of different style games. Like Nintendo always had like their own version of a Star Wars game, and Microsoft always had their own version of a Star Wars game. And it was cool to see what they all decided to do with the Star Wars franchise as a whole. Mm-hmm. But you never felt like you were missing out on Star Wars as a whole.
Well, think about what they did with Tomb Raider when the one Tomb Raider game was exclusive.
Yeah.
Or at least time exclusive. That sucked.
Well, Tomb Raider started out, I think, wasn't it exclusive to PlayStation when it first launched?
Yeah, but my point is that it existed outside of Microsoft, and Microsoft's like, nope, it's going to be on this console.
That's ours now.
Yeah, and I'm saying this as like, I love Xbox, so I understand like the business decision of making it exclusive and how it would be great for Microsoft and also Xbox owners, but still it bothers me.
I think Lord of the Rings could do something similar to what Star Wars used to do. I think you could have like this style of game is on Xbox, and then this Lord of the Rings style of game is on PC, and this Lord of the Rings style game is on PlayStation, and this Lord of the Rings style game is on Nintendo. But I think Lord of the Rings as a whole being exclusive to one console as a whole franchise would probably be a bad thing. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and then you can have multiple teams working on it. You can have a lot more coming out. Also, so you're asking earlier about what would make the games relevant again. I think actually having it focus on the Fellowship would be nice. And because, when was the last time it actually happened?
It's been a while. There hasn't been like a good games. If you did an entire HD Fellowship of the Ring style game, it'd be interesting to see that.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, that would be huge. That would be very popular. It'd be very exciting to get that kind of game.
Because they've focused on Return of the King and Two Towers for so long now, I feel like. And then the going back in time with different things.
Yep.
And then the Mordor universe with the Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor game.
Yeah, and then you also have like War of the North, which it focuses on a cool aspect of the battles, but doesn't have like Aragorn or Legolas or anything.
Also could be cool to have like a choose your own adventure in the Lord of the Rings franchise, like not necessarily affecting the main plot, but like being a side character.
Yeah, or you could just have a true RPG where you really are just in Middle Earth doing whatever you want. They can even set it during like the Second Age or something, which would line up with the show.
And that's part of the problem. I think those games were all extremely popular at the time that they came out because of the movies.
That's fair.
That definitely made a difference. Having media out at the same time, unless a game stands on its own, like Knights of the Old Republic does for the Star Wars franchise, right? That really stands on its own. People have nostalgia for that. That exists on its own as its own piece of the Star Wars franchise. It's very hard to release a new game in a franchise that's existing and, has a foundation around it.
And also Tolkien essentially laid out everything too. So
did.
with Star Wars, they were able to just create all of that. So it's a little bit different. So people you have to contend with that as well. So like the show is going to have to contend with it, where it's pretty much laid out. The Second Age is not like beat per beat written about, but where was I going with that? Oh, so like fans are going to be pissed if you screw with the lore. Is what I'm going to say.
Oh, Colors of Gaming. For those who can't see this, it says, when will Lord of the Rings make a comeback? Seriously, everyone gives George R.R. Martin crap, but Tolkien hasn't come out with a book for over 2 decades.
That's technically not true.
He's got
so I actually bought a couple Tolkien
there's
books.
There's like Lost Tales and...
way past that. So there's Baron Luthien.
Luthien.
There's the Fall of Gondolin. Or maybe it's the Children of Gondolin, actually.
Yep, Children. There was a Children of Something book. I've bought all these.
I could go get them because I have them.
I have bought all these books that you're talking about, mostly for Madeline because she was more into Lord of the Rings than I was. I'm more so now, but I was definitely less than she was, and still probably less. She really enjoys that series.
And because those are just published, and that's pretty impressive because he's dead
by his son, right? By his son,
Christopher. Christopher's dead now too, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it's gonna be hard to get more stuff out. I think isn't the like ownership of the creative legacy of J.R. Tolkien like still with his family though?
Yeah, it's within the Tolkien estate. Yeah,
that's what I thought. It's like his family still controls that at least, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it out of the hands of people that would damage it.
Yeah, well, I think Amazon gave probably the grave for his rough drafts. Let's see, maybe. Christopher was really good at was really close with his dad and was really good about finishing a lot of those stories. But where was I going with that? Oh, they paid the estate like $1 billion or something for them.
They can still pull the plug. That was a good idea, in my opinion. Like the Tolkien estate can pull the plug if they don't like it.
They're not going to like it. I mean, they hated the Lord of the Rings movies, and those are amazing. So,
well, wasn't Chris Tolkien still alive at the time that the Lord of the Rings movies came out?
Yeah. Oh, he hated them. He was very vocal about that. And the thing is, I totally get it. They're very, very different than the books.
And you kind of like adapting any movie to a film is any book to a film. Yeah, let's adapt movies to film. Oh, yeah. It's a very tricky process. Just like adapting the literature to gaming. Like there's very few franchises that do it well. And a lot of times you have a skewed amount of people that prefer one or the other, and very few crossover where there's like, I think they're both good in their own right. Where like, I think the Witcher series does a pretty good job. Where you've got people that are like, I mean, they're still diehard book lovers in The Witcher and diehard game lovers, but there's quite a bit of crisscross between those.
Yeah, the only difference is that in the books, he doesn't kill as many monsters because they're going extinct. That's kind of the whole crux of the story. So in the games, you're fighting them all the time, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's more fun. So I understand that.
There's the fun aspect of gaming and movies and stuff.
Well, it's the same thing with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is extremely slow. So if you've ever read it, like he really does describe every detail of a tree. And like the thing is, he created entire languages. So like he takes a long time explaining that stuff. And it's wonderful in that medium, but translating that like word per word to screen, I can see that being just boring, extremely boring. So, making it more actiony, having some jokes in there, being a little bit more pro-war, which Tolkien was very much anti-war.
That's true.
It definitely, that part looks better on TV. So I understand why they did it.
I want a game based around the Ents and their culture. And I want all of it, the whole game to be dialogue driven.
That would be awful. And also Tolkien did not finish all that, so he left a lot of that vague. Like where'd the Ent women go? No one knows. The Ent wives, rather, is what they're called. Yeah,
that just made me laugh. I was just like,
yeah. Or the original Hobbits. That's also unexplained.
Do you think this Gollum game will do anything for the franchise, or will it kind of exist on its own?
It's going. I am so confused by this concept. I have no idea what to expect. Like, I might just buy it because I love Lord of the Rings, but I'm
what
just
platforms
so
is it coming out for?
I think it's coming for everything.
Trailer.
Maybe not Switch. I have no idea what they're going to do with this game, unless it's like a stealth sneaking game. But
That's my understanding. That because I watched the preview forever ago. It's been a while. Watch, we're gonna get copyright claim because I watched a trailer that has no actual movie footage in it. But I think this game looks interesting. I don't know what the plan is with this. I've never seen them try something like this before, with Lord of the Rings especially. Gollum does look a little weird in his CGI animated version.
I thought it looked a little goofy too. They might as well just go full Peter Jackson with it.
Why is he not supposed to look this bad in the show? And he just looks really bad in the show.
This looks weird.
Yeah, his eyes are a little too big in my opinion.
They got that part right where they're shiny.
Yeah. I'm kind of hyped for Gollum, Red says. I have to say, like, I don't know which. Like,
is it like a puzzle? Like a puzzle defense game or something? Like where you set traps and then they come in?
It's supposed to be like the backstory, like what he's doing while everybody else is, doing their thing in Lord of the Rings. Like
we know that though.
But movie watchers don't necessarily.
Yeah, yes.
It's like they're probably just adapting. Oh, let's get rid of this. I don't want to get copyright struck. But anyways, it'll be different. I don't know what to do.
I am curious, but I was very confused when it was announced because we were coming hot off of the Shadow War games. So it's just like, oh, well, this is really weird.
Hot off? Dude, it's been like years since those came out.
When this was first announced, Shadow War was still like a thing.
Okay. Fair enough. Robbing the grave for his rough drafts, I see.
Yeah. So we might as well talk about what's your opinion on the show without getting too excited about it?
Mixed. Like I think Amazon can do a good job with things. There's a lot of stuff they've done a good job with.
I like The Boys.
The Expanse has been pretty good since Amazon got it, but that's also like The Expanse is a weird one because Jeff Bezos actually cares about the Expanse books. He really was like a huge fan of those. It's like he basically told the studio, like, you will not screw with this franchise. You will do exactly what the book says as much as you can and like adapt other things. It's like, so like if they screwed up, he's like pulling the plug on probably not only the development of that show, but also probably people's jobs. And Jeff Bezos had like a hand in like actually like, I want this to look good. So I guess it depends on what kind of creative liberties that the team creating the show gets. A lot. Because I don't want to see something where it doesn't affect the story of Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. I don't want to see something that's like, that's probably not Middle Earth. I don't want to see. I don't want to see them stray too far from what the source material does. Yeah, you know what I mean.
The thing is, like the Second Age is perfect. Yeah, the Second Age is perfect to set the story because that's a very large chunk of time where we don't know everything. So like, there's lots of free wiggle room to make lots of stories and then have it come to a head where we actually do know things. There are a couple things I'm worried about. Is one, they're condensing it, so they're having events happen really close to each other that like are not to like thousands of years apart. So that is weird. Seeing Galadriel in a warrior's outfit also is weird to me. Like, what are you doing with that character? They also make her look really young, which she would be thousands of years old at that point. So she's not super young. So that's just weird. Maybe they just have a young actress and they're just like, I don't know, prepping for her to be able to be there for 10 seasons or something.
I personally think what you're saying with condensing, something they could do that I've seen with other shows, like for example, Medici, they could just hit like a generation a season and then move on. Yeah, like there's
that's exactly what they should do. All the elves would be the same and dwarves would be the same, but the humans would die off. Which, whatever. I mean,
right? Exactly.
You can do that. That'd be kind of a cool, like having the cast change.
Like just do a season around a major event in the Second Age, and then the next major event, and you can do a prologue with explaining what's happened in between the seasons. We don't need all this super condensed, highly action-packed thrillers that everybody wants to put out. We don't.
It also gives so much. It would make so much sense because they're gonna come up on the fall of man and the fall of Numenor, and you can understand why that happens more because humans die and the elves don't. So they
can see all the
the jealousy and also like the fear of death and everything. That would be very powerful because you don't get to see that in the trilogy,
right?
And like the fall of Numenor is so cool. So I really hope they don't screw that up.
You're already telling me things that I don't want to hear.
It appears that Gandalf will be in it. So
which makes sense, right? He's a long-living person.
Yeah, he should be. Well, I mean, he's an angel, so he should be able to be there. But they have a like a meteor come in, and like someone comes out of the meteor, and it's like that does not appear in any of Tolkien's work. So like, what could that possibly be? It's probably an elf, or not an elf. I'm sorry, a wizard. So it could be Gandalf, or maybe a blue wizard. They could change how they come to Middle Earth,
because he didn't actually describe like the physical process of how they manifest.
No,
so you could easily just creative liberty that. I don't mind those things.
And if they do the blue wizards, we've never seen them, so it would be actually kind of cool to see the blue wizards finally, and also like learn what happens to them, because that's also left up to interpretation by Tolkien. So we don't actually know what happens to them. And also like how Sauron actually truly falls. That would be cool to see. That doesn't happen in the Second Age, but that would be cool to see.
I know this won't happen, but I would love to see like the Lord of the Rings creation story happen. And
I don't know. He's the god. I can't think of his name right now.
It's been a while. I read the Silmarillion over a decade ago. It
sings everything into existence.
Right.
So I don't know how you'd even show that. And there's like one discordant note, and that's created by Morgoth. So, and that's what creates evil. But I don't see how you would even do that.
Just do like a short animated thing, like showing all the different creatures coming into the world. I mean, you could do it like Game of Thrones style and just do like a storybook coming to life kind of thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, it is a long time for everything to come in the world, because like even like the dwarves are created by one of the random.
Well, you could do like a time lapse.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like do like a time lapse. I think that would be kind of cool to see.
Oh, what would be really cool to see is like Morgoth creating. Well, I don't know if it was Morgoth. Maybe it was Sauron. I think it's Morgoth creating the trolls.
Oh yeah,
because there's like a speculation that they're made out of the Ents, but we have no idea where they come from. Because in Tolkien's world, evil cannot create; it can only corrupt. So all of like the orcs are actually just corrupted elves, and then like the fell beasts are corrupted dragons, and all that kind of thing. So it would be cool to see that. That'd be neat.
I do think if the show does well, which I'm really concerned that it won't, but it could. If it does really well, you could see new from the Second Age style games.
That'd be cool.
Like you could see, instead of like Lord of the Rings the Third Age, then you get Lord of the Rings the Second Age game.
Yeah, I can see that they're taking a lot of liberty with a lot of things. I mean, obviously people are going to talk about the race, but I don't really care about that. I do care about how they're condensing the story. Galadriel's in armor, which does make sense because she's never in armor. And then I actually watched like a Tolkien expert on this, is like, what is his thoughts on it? And he's like, well, we've never actually heard the description of dwarvish women. So there's a dwarf that's going to be a main character. And things like, no, yes, we have. Like, I mean, it's written several times that they look so identical to the men that you actually can't distinguish them.
Right.
So it's like, you actually have like a very feminine actress playing this role. It doesn't have a beard. It doesn't look like any of the other like man dwarves. It's like,
well, to be fair, like you could look like if you're a female dwarf, let's just put it this way, and you have really long hair, you could easily make that look like a beard.
Yeah, I mean, if they played it off like that. Also, another thing is like they're very protective of their women in the lore.
Yeah.
So if they have her like traversing the entire continent, again, it's like
kind of breaks the.
You could always like. There's always a way of making that story work, and so I'm not gonna be that one of those people like, oh, you've ruined everything just from this trailer I've seen. But no. I'm uncomfortable with it at the moment, so we'll see where they go with it.
I never like it when you have like concrete canon for a franchise, and creative liberty folks decide let's just not use it.
Yeah, well, they didn't have to change much with also making really cool stories, and also like again, the elephant in the room is like making sure that you have diversity and inclusion in the show. But you could have done that easily without changing anything, because there's like lots of other worlds. You could easily have different races come in from other places and have like actually tell their stories. And the thing is, that would have taken work to do it. And it's like, instead of just shoehorning people in, I guess maybe that's what I'm a little worried about that. Again, I haven't seen this. I don't know. It could be amazing, and I'm very hopeful. Another thing that I'm worried about is them making it too much like Game of Thrones. I don't want
That's
them to have
my
a lot of sex.
biggest concern is that they take Lord of the Rings, which is a relatively family friendly, you know, like
Well, it's
teenager
children's
and yeah, and you turn it into like you said, Game of Thrones. I really, really don't want to have Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings style.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need that. I
don't
think anybody.
I have it
needs
already.
that.
It's called Game of Thrones. I mean that is he made those books to focus on taxes and sex, and like that's like the basis of why he decided to write that story.
That's kind of funny that was the reason. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, like he's talked about it before. It's like he wanted to know how like the taxation system worked, and like more of like the actual like governing bodies. And
that
then it stemmed into the epic that is A Song of Ice and Fire. But at least I already have that.
The ice, there's a fire, the sex, and the tax.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But I really hope they don't do that.
Whereas Lord of the Rings is clearly based on something entirely different than that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's honestly all the things that I when I first heard that Amazon was making this show, that's what I was worried about. I don't care about the casting choices. I don't care. Like I do care about the lore changes because I do like the lore. But they could make the story work.
Anytime you get one of these media franchises behind a paywall like Amazon Prime Video, I feel like these companies just feel like you have to have all these extra things in there. And it's like, I don't need Showtime producing everything. Like there's a big reason why Stargate did better on Sci-Fi than it did on Showtime.
Yes.
There's an extra 5 minutes of footage in the first episode that doesn't exist in the Sci-Fi version.
Yeah, it was like the HBO effect or whatever, where the first episode is just gratuitous violence, gratuitous sex, and then the rest of them are usually okay for the rest of the season. But they want you in there. It's like, oh, you know what sells? Boobies. Put in the boobies.
Oh my gosh. Well, nowadays it's like 50 Shades of Grey. Let's make it crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like I don't want to see that. Come on. And the thing is, it's lazy writing. That's why they put that in there because like people.
Well, it's like 5 minutes of a scene you don't have to write for.
Yeah, exactly.
Sex scenes right themselves.
Which I have to give Game of Thrones a little bit of credit because they would actually have like really interesting dialogue during those scenes.
Yeah.
But it still is too uncomfortable to watch. It's like, oh man.
You're like, you just mute the video and you're listening to the conversation.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, there's one in particular where Littlefinger is explaining like his entire grand vision of the world. And he's having these two girls pleasure each other like while he's watching. It's like, oh god, I didn't need that, but it's so important to listen to because like it tees up for the rest of the season.
Oh, your poor eyes, Will.
I know.
So, if you were to pick the ideal genre of game for Lord of the Rings to come back in gaming, which one would you pick?
I mean, I will always be a fan of an action RPG because I find those really immersive and really fun. But I would not say no to an RTS.
Now, who would you pick as the main character? Like, if you had to pick a character in Lord of the Rings to be the main character of whatever this action RPG is, would you want a custom character or an existing character?
I'd take a custom. I think that would be cool. And again, I would still set it in the Second Age because I think there's lots of opportunities to have unique stories that will literally create its own canon without destroying the lore. I think that would be really cool.
I think it would be cool to have Lord of the Rings to see what would happen. Like, let's say all the pieces in Return of the King fall apart, and you get to play one of these like lords. Like, let's say you're the King of Rohan. My goodness, my brain is not getting there. And you get to choose to ally with the team or not. Or like, let's say you get to play as Elrond, and let's say you decide to join them earlier on and not actually, just fall away into your own area and leave the world essentially.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see how that would change the events in the game. That could still be an action game, but it wouldn't necessarily be an action RPG. It'd be more like your Telltale mixed with like an RPG or an action game.
Yep.
I'd be curious to see how the dominoes fall if you change some things.
Well, I have to open up with the monologue from Galadriel saying that I'm trying to think how it goes on. It's like your quest stands but on the edge of a knife. Stray but a little and you will fail.
That's a good one. Yeah, that'd be good.
And that's how they start it. And then like the game is all about choices. That'd be cool.
And you could do that too from like a Battle for Middle Earth style. Like whatever you decide to do with your army, you would change the story. Same idea.
Yep.
I kind of like the idea of choose your own adventure in these kind of games because, for example, I read the book Pillars of the Earth, and they have a lot of choices you can make in that game. Daedalus Interactive did a good job with it, actually, where at the end of the game, you can kind of ally yourself with various different people. Well, one of those people that you can ally yourself with or not is like amongst the characters you play the choices of. So you could actually accidentally kill the priest who's supposed to be like the main protagonist in the game. And like, because he's supposed to, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a point in the story where like, if you don't ally yourself with him on a specific decision, and I didn't realize this the first time I played, I was like, that's not how the story ends. Like, oh yeah, this is choose your own adventure. But I thought I did everything right, and he ends up dying. It's like, oh no. It's like, that's not what happened in the real one. Actually, maybe I should do a let's play of that sometime and like explain the differences between the book and the game, because everybody I've seen that's played it online hasn't read the book.
So that's what I like about that is like, going into it that you can change it and it might deviate from the lore. That's totally fine. They're billing like the Amazon show that it's actually sticking to it. Another character, so the main character is going to be a Hobbit, it looks like, and that's another one that I'm cautious. Like, I'm like, oh no, what are they going to do with that? Because really, the Hobbit should not be in there. Technically, we don't know when they originated, so they could have existed in the second age, but no one knows about them. Now, so having a Hobbit go and like interact with all the main characters from the trilogy, that's gonna be a problem.
Now I'm curious. I thought I remembered. Maybe I'm mixing two different lores together, but I thought that the Hobbits were like some combination of dwarf and human.
No, so I don't think they're ever explained. Okay. It's assumed, I think, that they're essentially an offshoot of man.
Right, but I thought it was like the that was the marital pairing of a human and a dwarf.
Somehow. I mean, it's possible. That's another theory. I don't think that the origin is ever explained. Okay. And they do have a lineage where there are some taller ones that are more human-like, or like, as tall as a man, and then they get smaller and smaller as they're more isolated. But like that's a big point of the Hobbit and of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is that no one knows what the Hobbits are. So like the whole reason why Gandalf chooses Bilbo for the Hobbit is that Smaug won't know his scent. So that's a big part of that story. And Smaug is super old. And then in the Lord of the Rings, Sauron didn't know what the Shire was and didn't know what hobbits were. So when Gollum gave up the fact that Bilbo had taken the ring, and he said that it was in the Shire, they actually had to like look around like lots of places to figure out where it is, and torture people for that information. And also it would constantly underestimate them because they didn't know what they were. So yeah, that's.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Melkor too. He's a thing.
Yeah.
It is unknown when the hobbits first appeared in Arda. They're only known to have originated somewhere in the valley of the Anduin River. By the time they were discovered by the other peoples of Middle Earth, they had already been around for many generations. The earliest group of hobbits lived in the valleys of Anduin, in the region of Wilderland Mirkwood and Misty Mountains. According to Lord of the Rings, they forgot any genealogical ties to the big people. At this time, there were 3 breeds or tribes of hobbits. You've got the Harfoots, the Stores, and the Fallowhides. Okay. And I think one of those 3 was the last of their, and that was Gollum, right? He was the last one.
He was a part of the River Folk. I don't know if he's actually listed in that 3.
Okay.
He was like a hobbit. I'm not sure if they ever confirmed he is a hobbit.
I think it said, maybe I thought I read that somewhere. That's fine.
He said he was close to a hobbit. I don't think they ever said like 100% Gollum is a hobbit, unless it's like in a letter or something. Because I know they base a lot of the actual lore off of what Tolkien would write back to fans and to his editors and stuff.
Yeah, as long as we don't get so far off of Lord of the Rings lore that like somehow we play as J.R. Tolkien at some point rewriting the books.
That'd be cool.
It'd be different. You get to like go to the pub, hang out with C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, and the Eagle and the Child. Yep. I've actually been there, and I think I've said this 100 times, but
you have.
It is really cool. I actually sat in the same booth because like everything's open, so you can sit in the same booth that they would sit in, and order a pint. And I had a burger, and the burger was terrible. Beer was really good though.
All right, so to summarize our thoughts, and correct me and stop me if I'm wrong, in order to bring back Lord of the Rings to its full effect like it was back in the early 2000s, we need good media that sticks to the lore and canon of the show and what he, not the show, lore and canon of the books that J.R. Tolkien laid out before them, doesn't stray too far. I mean, obviously some creative choices, fine, but overall canon and lore breaking is not acceptable. As far as the games go, we need less of the vindictive and manipulative processes like microtransactions and loot boxes, and more of the story-driven, good single-player, even maybe some multiplayer style games. That kind of takes it back to the roots of why these games were good. Battle for Middle Earth 2 is amazing. Had good online. Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, great action game. Battle for Middle Earth, not Battle for Middle Earth. Shadow of Mordor was a great single-player game, and just shoehorning in microtransactions is not good. So we need to get rid of the manipulative practices and just make a good game. And then as far as go ahead,
and I was saying, either follow the lore and actually if you're going to be within the Hobbit and the trilogy, you need to follow the lore, because people are
100%.
People love it. There's a dedicated fan base. They're going to be pissed when you deviate, and people are upset about Shadow of Mordor for deviating. But if you want to deviate, that's totally fine. Just go into another era, find a side war, like War of the North is a great example of this, and explore there. And it's okay if you deviate at that point.
And then as far as bringing it back, what is the correct genre to bring back? I think you are more right than I am. I think an action RPG set in the time frame of the Amazon show would make the most sense, personally, because it'll be tied in with the media that's popular. Just like the old
game rights are coming up soon, actually.
Yeah, Warner Brothers, I think its contract expires soon. When does the Warner Brothers Lord of the Rings contract?
Maybe Microsoft will buy this. I don't want Amazon to buy it because I don't want it to become like a Luna exclusive. Or who? That's Luna, right? That's Amazon's thing.
Okay, so I guess this is a hot topic. Warner Brothers flexes Lord of the Rings muscle amid conflict over film rights. Interesting. They have asserted that they still rule Middle Earth when it comes to films rights. Okay. I don't know. I don't know when they expire then, Will. This is going to be interesting. So They were saying on February 15th, they released the first production image of Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. What? What is this?
Yeah, what is this?
2024? We're getting a new film?
It's anime.
Oh, anime.
Meh.
What? Lord of the Rings anime? Okay, this is clearly not how you bring back Lord of the Rings. Unless they mean like new school, like CGI, and I still wouldn't be a fan of that.
That's fine. I mean, if it looks like Blur Studio stuff, that'd be cool.
If they could do like what even like Avatar did like a long time ago, that Avatar, which Avatar, the Blue People Avatar, not the airbending Avatar. It could look pretty real, and I would be okay with that.
I don't know. That's the reason why I love the trilogy so much and not so much the Hobbit trilogy is because they have real CGI. People. Yeah, and no CGI. Well, minimal CGI.
Very minimal. Kind of like how Jurassic Park, the original, still looks good.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Because they used the physical props and
animatronics,
stuff. Animatronics, yeah, exactly.
I do love going back and rewatching the first one, though, because you can actually see the T-Rex shake sometimes because of the water. It would actually screw up the mechanics.
That's funny. I did not know that.
Yeah, it would get too heavy.
I'm sure they've cleaned some of that up in the film post-production.
Yeah, maybe it's only the VHS version, but it's actually really funny. So this is totally unrelated, but Spielberg decided to film it in the rain at the last moment, and the T-Rex wasn't built for that, so it would actually get too heavy for the mechanics to actually lift its head, so it starts shaking. And there's like tons of set photos where you see people like putting towels on it to dry it off. That's great. That's
funny. I did not know that. But for the same reason that Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, still looks really good, is because they chose in my opinion, the better option. And I did not even know this was a thing. But this will probably lead to gaming too, I'm sure. Every good Lord of the Rings and every bad Lord of the Rings both equally lead to gaming.
Yep.
So I do hope, because those were good franchises we had back in the day, that we have some good franchises going forward. I'd hate to have an age of kids where they never are exposed to Lord of the Rings because the franchise is like dead.
Yeah, that's kinda what parents have to start reading now. Those are technically children's books. So
I would read The Hobbit to my kids probably when they get a little older, but I don't think I would read Lord of the Rings until they got older.
Oh, it's older.
Yeah, it's a little harder for kids to pick up and understand.
That's why they need to read it now, man. They got to start getting those gears turning.
Yeah, I don't think 4-year-olds are the target audience of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, they can be, Chris. You got little geniuses. I know what you're doing over there, making your own little genius village.
All right. Well, as that is wrapped up, what else do you want to say about Lord of the Rings? Obviously, you're both big fans of the.
I am still super hopeful for this Lord of the Rings show. I really hope it doesn't suck. I do not buy into like the hate. Everyone's like, you've seen pictures and you've seen the trailer. Like, I'm not going to hate on the show for that. I'm cautiously optimistic. I hope it's amazing. The thing is, I want it to be good. So I'm rooting for it.
Kind of like the Halo TV show, even though I'm like annoyed by a lot of the choices they made.
I'm super pissed about some of the choices that they've made for that. What I've read about the fact like Miranda Keyes is now a doctor instead of a captain. It's like, why? Why is that? Why is that?
Yeah,
thing?
like these are choices that don't really. It's weird when a show chooses to make a decision that deviates for reasons that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like when it doesn't fit any of the narrative plot, why does it matter if you change it? Why should you change it?
Yeah, well, it's like maybe they have a good reason in the show, and I have to watch it to find out. But
they're just gonna have Miranda Keyes following the footsteps of her mom instead.
Yeah,
that's not gonna work.
It's so weird to me. Because like the whole point is like, it's the whole point. She follows her dad because her mom is a cold-hearted person, and then she ends up being an awesome captain and like is so influential in the war. So I don't know. Anyway.
It makes no sense. I agree. Maybe she's a doctor and then joins the military.
Maybe.
I hope that's what it is, because I don't understand why she would be a doctor.
I don't know either.
Anyways, anything else you want to say about Lord of the Rings?
I'm going to reread the books again this year. So
I probably will finish finally the trilogy. I'll probably start it over with the Fellowship and reread all of it. But Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers was hard for me to read in high school because it's like the first half is like jam-packed, and then the second half's like, why did you not do this like alter chapter by chapter instead of doing this whole one story and whole the other story? It's like,
Well, it's actually written as one book. Did you know that?
Is it originally?
The trilogy was one book.
Oh, yeah. I did know that. It was meant to be, but then they released it in 3 volumes, essentially.
Yeah, because they're like, no one's going to read this.
Stupid. Well, funny you say that. My sister has the entire combined Lord of the Rings book.
I do too.
And
is it leather?
I think so. And then she's also got the entire Chronicles of Narnia combined too.
Oh, I don't have mine combined. Mine is individual books.
But
I tried to. I never read those as a kid, and I tried to read them as an adult, and I got through 2, and it's like, oh gosh, these are meant for kids. I can't do it.
It's meant for a younger age, for sure, like young adult or young or older child, one or the other.
Yes,
it is harder to read it as an adult. Some of these books that are fun to read as kids.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. The thing is, like, I haven't reread The Hobbit in a while, and I'm worried about going back to it.
That one's still written. That one's still written good enough that you can read as an adult, I think, in my personal opinion.
All right.
Silmarillion, on the other hand, I don't know who is meant to read that.
I don't know what that is. It's good once you get through it finally, but it's
well, it explains a lot of things.
Yes,
it's like the Old Testament of the Bible for Lord of the Rings.
Oh my gosh, I'm stuck in Leviticus. No, I'm stuck in Numbers right now, and it's just like, why is this in here?
Yeah, it's such a weird. Like nobody writes books like that.
Well, they should have put something in between Leviticus and Numbers, because it's like back to back. It's like, oh god, literally.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, on that note, obviously the Silmarillion is not the next book, movie, show, but you could easily take parts of it. And that is my opinion.
What if it would be cool to see a show based off of the Silmarillion? That would be trippy.
That would be extremely dope. It'd be like 100 seasons long. It'd be so you'd never run out of material.
I would be there for it though.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm gonna call it. I would love to see new Lord of the Rings good games, personally.
Mm-hmm, me too.
And everything else. But obviously J.R. Tolkien's not with us anymore, so we're not gonna get new books unless the posthumous releases keep happening.
Yeah.
Or
I think they're done.
If they release the rights for people to write books in that franchise, which I would not necessarily be okay with.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. Yeah.
So anyways, as always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
and we will see you
on next CHRILLCAST. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.